Quality Management and Benchmarking presents Samvaad QMB, Conversations on Quality at Symbiosis International University.
Hello Symbiosis, this is Dev Sanyal. Welcome to yet another episode of Samvaad QMB, Conversations in Quality Season 2, an initiative by Quality Management and Benchmarking at the Symbiosis International University. Today, we bring you a Samvaad, a discussion on one of our core tenets, internationalization. And we cannot mince words around this. Internationalization is in the very name of our university. The SIU is, after all, built on a blueprint of a global international educational institution, which is not just ready to welcome international and global students to its campuses, but is also planning to prepare our students for the global platform. But all of this is easier said than done. The very idea of internationalization has undergone a sea change over the past few decades. It's a two-way street. New opportunities have presented themselves while new challenges are cropping up. So, how has this evolution panned for Symbiosis? How have we evolved to ensure that we not only appear as an inviting prospect for international students, but also galvanize into an arena for training future international citizens and innovators? And how are we negotiating this shift of needs? Well, to answer all of these questions, to provide us with these much needed insights, we have with us today Dr. Anita Patankar, the Director of Symbiosis Centre for International Education here at SIU. Dr. Patankar is the Director of Symbiosis Centre for International Education and the founding director of the Symbiosis School of Liberal Arts, where she now holds an advisory position. She has been actively engaged in the Indian higher education space for 40 years now and headed India's first 4-year liberal arts degree program at SSLA for close to 12 years. At present, she also serves on the board of trustees of EcoNet, is on the Indian Members Council of the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute, is a member of the CII Africa Community, is a founding member of the Alliance of Asian Liberal Arts Universities, a member of the Indian Network of Internationalization of Higher Education, and is a member of Samvedana Symbiosis International University's Gender Advisory Committee. Welcome to Samvaad, Professor Patankar. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Dev, for having me, and thank you to QMB for having a session on internationalization. Obviously, it's symbiosis, so internationalization is core. To me personally as well, internationalization makes sense, the kind of world that we live in.
It's very interesting that you mentioned about how important, how it completely makes sense to go internationalization. But beginning with this changing definition, almost like a dual definition of internationalization that we are coming up on, we realize that for any HEI, higher education institute, it's no longer enough to have international students, but also develop international level opportunities for its core, as its core infrastructure, right? This helps us attract more global students, launch domestic students onto international career paths, and keep the university at par with global standards. So, how has the definition of internationalization evolved in the context of higher education, and why is it so important to sort of focus on this dual aspect, especially right now?
You know, Dev, over the years, what we understand internationalization to be has changed.
Right.
And I think that's reflective of the changes that have taken place in the country and in the world. When our Chancellor, Professor Muzumdar, established Symbiosis, it was very clear that the mandate and the vision was global citizens, ambassadors of goodwill who would be able to study at Symbiosis and in India and then go back to their home countries, and maybe one day forge closer ties with India.
Right.
But it was primarily to provide a home away from home. Therefore, student mobility was very important. And I think internationalization in that era meant mobility. Students coming in, students going out, and we've had a very healthy number of students from India going abroad, studying at international campuses and programs, and learning obviously a lot. Similarly, we've had an adequate number of students coming to India. Over the years, I think the world has changed in so many ways. Today, when we look at internationalization and what does it mean to us, I think we're looking at it from the perspective of our students and all the stakeholders.
Right.
Even in 1971, when foreign students came to Symbiosis and interacted with Indian students, especially after the law school and the computers and the LTIS was set up, I think the Indian students gained a lot by being in classes and by being on campuses where they had huge diversity. Where else but at Symbiosis would you have a student from Israel, Iran, Iraq, Palestine,
Right.
Namibia, Nigeria, Thailand, on the same campus that someone from Pune was? So it was like a small microcosm of the world. Over the years, I think this need has grown globally. Everyone now understands that diversity and inclusion is important, that global competencies are required. Entrepreneurs set up businesses not with the hope of becoming big in their state or in their country, but of being global leaders. So our reality has changed. And over the years, our expectations from studies have changed, from educational institutions have changed. Today, when parents look towards universities, what do they want? They want so much more than just a degree.
Right.
And as universities, therefore, it's our job, and that's the mandate of my department, the Symbiosis Centre for International Education, to be able to provide that supportive learning system. How do we create enabling learning environments? How do we create a supportive learning structure so that everyone who comes in, irrespective of whether they are from the states in India or from one of the 85 countries that we get students from, that they're able to learn, that they're able to take back that learning to their home cities or home countries, find valuable employability, realize every single day that the education that they received has global relevance, is applicable. So today the reality is that our interpretation of internationalization has changed. So one of the things that we're looking at now, in fact for the past quite a few years actually, is internationalization at home. And internationalization at home is about providing international and intercultural dimensions for someone who never is able to travel, for someone who's never able to avail of a global immersion opportunity from a partner university.
Right.
How does that student learn what it is to be international? How does that student learn what it is to work with intercultural groups? How does that student understand what they're studying over here? Let's say you're studying a case in production management. How does that translate if I were to work in Mexico? If I were to go and work in China? What does that mean and how can I apply things? So internationalization at home has become our focus.
Ma'am, it's great that you mentioned that. The first question that comes to my mind is, what are the specific programs that have already started or are about to begin that will help us, and how will they help us in this aspect? And how are these programs sort of catering to the diverse communities that we have in terms of the students, in terms of the staff, faculty? What are we thinking about that?
Students, staff, faculty, leadership.
Right.
these are the 4 areas and stakeholders that I think internationalization should be focusing on.
Right.
Our center does it. I'm not going to say that it's perfect, because I think this is an evolving area.
Of course.
But regular reviews tell us that we're on the right path and that we have been able to strategically plan
Right.
for various opportunities and interventions for all of these stakeholders. I think the students have always been the first area of responsibility in terms of stakeholder satisfaction, and I think there we've actually been able to create quite a few policies, because I think success depends on the policies that you do and then the way you implement those policies. So for students, we have a global immersion policy. We have credit transfer and equivalence policies that support our students to visit foreign partners, study there for a short while or a semester or more, and this policy helps in the equivalence and the credit transfer back. We also realize that travel is expensive, and we don't want these opportunities to be available only to the privileged. There are so many students, brilliant students, who may not be able to afford that, and we don't want them to lose out. So therefore, we also have a global immersion scholarship for Indian students to avail of. It's a competitive scholarship, of course, merit-based. I think our twinning, which is short-term, less than 30% of the curriculum, in partnership with partners, is something that we've been doing for many, many years, and I think we're very good at it. So whether it's semester exchange, semester abroad, study trips, summer schools, both ways, I think I'm happy. I'm happy with that area. When it comes to staff and faculty, I think this is an area where we've improved drastically, I would say, in the last decade. Opportunities for staff to travel on funded projects has been available. Most of my staff has been able to avail of that. We also do a number of workshops and webinars for the faculty at the institutes who work in the area of internationalization. So the structure at Symbiosis is that while Symbiosis Centre for International Education is the central body, each institute has its own smaller international cell. They have faculty who are in charge, and they also have staff members, depending upon, obviously, student numbers. So we do workshops for them. I think it's really important that intercultural understanding is key. Not just the understanding of provisions that are available for internationalization and the grants that are available and the programs that are available, but also to basically understand the keys that what does it mean to be a global citizen. And I think it works really well for us because India is a diverse country itself. So whatever you are able to learn in terms of intercultural from a global point of view automatically will spill over into the way that you are able to deal with diversity, equity and inclusion within the country. So there are programs, and we have many more plans for activities for staff members. For faculty, I think it's been the most exciting in terms of greater opportunities. So we have a travel policy which provides funding for faculty who want to go travel abroad, either to present a paper, to maybe speak at a conference, to go and teach at a partner university. So there are many opportunities for that. And right now, I think ever since the pandemic, actually the rate of these conversations and discussions have been accelerated. I think the pandemic told us that, you can meet online, you don't have to get onto a flight. And people are a little more conscious of the carbon footprint as well. So with faculty, there are many of these policies that are available. through the pandemic, we also had an online policy for inviting foreign faculty to teach. Okay. And we were able to give them a healthy remuneration honorarium as well. So in this area, as far as faculty is concerned, research is our focus. So Dr. Vidya and Dr. Raman mentor us in this area, and we are very ably supported by the Symbiosis Centre for Research and Innovation. And I think between all of us, collaboratively, our focus is to offer as many varied opportunities to faculty who work at Symbiosis, who teach at Symbiosis, who are passionate about teaching, learning as well as research, and to be able to connect them to the right fit. I think one of the things that I've learned in the past 4 or 5 years at SCIE is that, just because you're invited to a party doesn't mean you have to dance with everybody. I keep, reiterating that to myself.
That's a great metaphor.
And so there are so many. We have 79 close partnerships. Some are really, really great from a mobility point of view. Some are really great from a research collaboration point of view. So finding that match between institutes, and the directors do a great job over here, because directors, I think, take the responsibility and run with it in terms of the kind of internationalization opportunities they want to offer, especially their faculty. So there's a lot that is happening there. I'm happy that a lot of, we have some dual degree programs and quite a few, in the pipeline. So there is a lot that's happening for faculty and for obviously directors, heads of centers. We've had some wonderful Spark, collaborations, UKRE, Erasmus, Turing, all of these in which again Siri helps. With the grant writing and the proposals. So I think between workshops and webinars that we do on our own or with partner universities from abroad, to the opportunity itself, and then to having funds to be able to achieve this, is something that I think I'm happy with. And the numbers who have been able to avail of this has grown. And when they come back, obviously it spills over through conversations in the staff room and, in the classroom. So these are some of the things that we've been doing.
So ma'am, this reminds me, and this makes me realize that how vibrant the cultural milieu we have in our campuses, in SIU campuses. Now, I was curious, what are some of the steps that your center is taking for greater cultural awareness, both amongst our student as well as teachers and faculty members and staff?
Dev, we've realized that intercultural understanding, intercultural competence, sensitivity, they're all rooted in an acknowledgement of globalization, of migration, and cultural diversity. And these three, I think, become the foundation for some of the activities that we do academically, in terms of workshops and courses, but also in terms of the various engagements and activities that we are able to do. So when we talk of summer schools, the creation of summer schools, or our center is extremely good at creating bespoke Study India programs. So when we talk about those programs, I think we keep these three in mind, and then we're able to work with whoever the client is or whoever the partner university is to be able to create these programs. Some of the things that I think we do which actually become a part of the informal curricula, so to speak, but which has greater ability to, to seep into the core of every student, are the wonderful programs that the center along with the International Student Council is able to do. So each year we plan a number of activities, whether it's our very popular International Food Festival or the multiple dance and music competitions that we have. The Student Council has so many events, whether it is the celebration of festivals, whether it's the celebration of national days. These are things that we're able to do. We're able to invite ambassadors and distinguished professors to come from these many countries to be able to share their experiences and a comparative in terms of what's happening in the world so that students understand. One of the things that we started a few years ago, and I have a feeling it's very unique to Symbiosis, is that our International Student Council and some of the students, the foreign students, they actually work with the schools. So as you know, Symbiosis has schools as well. And it's become now a part of our mandate to ensure that the foreign students who come to Symbiosis to study have an opportunity to engage with the school children.
While we are immensely competent and experienced in this field of internationalization, it's the nature of an evolving ecosystem that challenges will occur. And you mentioned some of those already in terms of the financial aspects of flying out, the travel aspect, the logistics aspect. But I'm just listening to what you told me. It seems like there are several moving pieces here. If you could tell us what are the specific challenges at this point that you are focused on, and what are some of the challenges that have been one of the major focus but have been recently sort of resolved, or we have had a breakthrough with?
I have a feeling if there were no challenges, we wouldn't find that work exciting.
Right.
But you're right, the world is changing so fast. And I think, for me at least, I feel the way in which international higher education institutions look at India today has changed. It's changed dramatically in this past decade, I would say.
Sure.
India is suddenly now a preferred partner, not just from the student recruitment point of view, but also as a place to do research, because we're a huge lab, we're a great lab. I mean, the entire society is this great laboratory,
of course,
for scientists and for researchers to study. And I think that has been one critical change that's happened, which has led to a number of challenges. And I think the challenge, and it's a challenge of, it's not a bad challenge to have.
Sure.
In terms of the number of foreign universities who approach us.
Right.
And then the challenge of picking and choosing. So carefully selecting, curating a list of partner universities so that there is a mutual benefit. I think today we are in a situation where we want to sit at the table as equals, that we have a lot to offer, and that while there is much for us to learn, there is much for our foreign partners to learn from us as well. And I think over the years we've become a little more adept at having those conversations and those negotiations, while also managing to keep the depth and the core of our partnership strong. One of the challenges that we face when it comes to student recruitment or admissions, I think is something that we've been working for in the past few years. As you know, Dr. Vidya sits on many, many important boards and panels. And at each one of these, we have been asked in the past and on our own proactively. We've offered many, many suggestions, to various bodies, including the government. One of the things that I think holds back large numbers of students coming into studying at India, not just Symbiosis, but in India itself, is the fact that we don't offer work visas to students.
Yes. Yes.
They don't have a work visa while they're studying, and they don't have a post-study work visa either. And globally, the experience is that countries that don't offer this have very, very low foreign enrollments.
Right.
I think that's a huge challenge for us. And the challenge at the international office actually is that for domestic students, Symbiosis is so well known for employability post the degree
right.
for placements. And for many parents, that is the driving reason why many of them might be looking at a symbiosis degree. The value goes up because the corporate values the education that you've received.
Sure.
With us at the international office now, the challenge is how do we navigate and circumvent this? And therefore, we've been in conversations, and I hope in the coming year that we should be able to, to take care of this, is how can we identify Indian organizations who have operations in the countries that our students come from.
Right. Interesting.
And can we offer them placements there? So they do their entire process here, but they get to work in their home countries. So I think this is a huge challenge. And it's a challenge that all Indian universities face. I think another challenge that we face is, which I think we've been able to manage quite well, is the fact that our academic calendars don't match foreign academic calendars. And especially when we were having conversations and course mapping, for the dual degrees, initially we got stuck.
Right.
And we said, how is this going to happen? How are we going to make this happen? How can students seamlessly move from the end of one semester at SIU into a fresh semester at a partner university? And I think we were stumped for a little while. But it's good to be stumped every once in a while, because then your brain starts working a little out of the box. And I'm happy that we've been able to be a little innovative, and also I think navigate that process with our partners. So I think now we're better at doing this. We're better at course mapping. We're better at looking at learning outcomes and mapping those, graduate outcomes and mapping those. So I think the academic challenge, I think we've been able to, I would say, manage to a very, very large extent. Another challenge, of course, is that the number of foreign faculty that we have. It is difficult to be able to get full-time foreign faculty in the numbers that we want.
Sure.
We are working with suggestions to, the ministries, the relevant ministries, so that we are able to manage this within the visa and the work visa requirements that they have. But I think we've been able to come up with a good substitute. So in the past 2 years, we've been able to identify through conferences, through networks that our directors and our faculty have, through the partners that we have, a very healthy number of foreign faculty who are happy to be associated with us as international visiting faculty or international adjunct faculty, distinguished professors, co-supervisors or co-guides for PhD. And I think that number is slowly and steadily increasing, which means that students and or faculty are gaining from those conversations and those discussions. And that's the best way actually to learn about what's happening outside, to learn about what's happening, in various countries, and to get that global perspective, because that's the objective.
Right.
And that has been the challenge as well, is that how do we ensure that every course, every engagement, every intervention is benefited from the offering of global perspectives.
Right.
And given that we have students that come in from such diverse countries, that's the challenge as well. So while the Harvard Business Review might work for a case study for some, does it work for someone in Africa?
Right.
And how do we make sure that that learning material, is adequate for all? So one of the things that we're doing now in our partnerships is saying, can we share teaching learning material? Can we share resources?
One of the things that I got curious about while listening to you about it. So, you mentioned about the academic aspect, you mentioned about the occupational aspect, and of course, for our students and faculty members. Now, there is another sort of, and this is not of course for one university, but often a criticism or a sort of like a point of questioning that comes in for the entire Indian higher education system is that sometimes for international students, another challenge comes in the skill development ecosystem when it comes to, for instance, internships or let us say summer jobs or something like that. Now, you mentioned about the visa challenge. Just to get us a clearer understanding, especially for those amongst our audience who are from the international community, how does the internship or the skill development ecosystem sort of fit in this larger picture?
So, one of the good things about the present visa policy is that if internship is a part of the program, then when a student gets a visa to come to study that program, it is then by default that the student can get an internship.
Perfect.
The student can't get paid for the internship.
Right, right.
Because you can't pay them because the work visa is not available. But stipends are given. Of course, the stipends are very low. But most of the times what happens is that students want an opportunity to learn.
Right.
They're not necessarily looking, I mean, they would need it of course, but they're not necessarily looking at earning money while they're getting employed. Because when they come to India, I think one of the sad realities is that they know in their hearts they're not going to be able to work. So therefore, they're not going to be able to earn, and they come with that realization. So my office as well as the directors of the institutes have been able to get internships, volunteering opportunities, work integrated learning opportunities for the students. There are a few that choose to go back home, very few that choose to go back home and do their internship, but otherwise they are able to manage with the huge network of corporates and the small and medium scale organizations that our institutes have. So the internship is not that much of a problem.
Okay.
And where students do struggle or where institutes do struggle, then SCIE is able to step in and offer internships.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much, ma'am. And all of this is fascinating as it sounds. It does seem that there's a lot of strategization that is going on, a lot of moving pieces and everything. Which brings me to my next question. As the head of SCIE, as somebody who's in the middle of all this strategization, what's your favorite music? Or what are your favorite web series? And I'm also sort of making a wild guess here that somebody who interacts with a lot of international students, faculty members, a lot of international stakeholders, I am guessing that the playlist is also international. Is it true?
Yes, I often get criticized that I don't read enough regional books. Okay. And I'm reading foreign authors, or I'm listening to Engelbert Humperdinck or Shania Twain, or I'm listening to jazz, but I'm not listening to Indian classical music. That is, my friends love to poke at me with that. But I do like to read a lot, usually crime, thriller, detective, suspense, who did it kind of. Watch movies for sure.
So before you go, what's the last novel, just so that I can check it on my list as well?
So I actually read an old P.G. Wodehouse.
Oh, okay.
Which I like to go back and read, but otherwise I think before that I read the latest David Baldacci, and then I read Iris Johansson. So I've been reading quite a few. An old favorite has been Perry Mason, and I still have those old volumes. But as far as music, it's totally eclectic.
Okay.
It depends on my mood. So it could just be jazz, instrumental, or an all-time favorite. I grew up with Engelbert Humperdinck. I love Shania Twain. But then sometimes I'm in the mood for SD Burman, when you just want to feel good in your soul, those lyrics and that music. But actually, at the international office, I think the thing that makes me relax the most is, end of the day, there are always international students hanging at the office, and just chatting with them recharges my batteries every single day.
Right.
That they're the reason why you get up in the morning and come to work.
Fantastic. That all sounds very, very fascinating, ma'am. And thank you so much for sharing all that insightful information about SCIA, about its interaction with its student. We look forward to hearing more, and we look forward to welcoming a larger and larger community of international students to our campuses. Well, with all of that fascinating discussion, I think it's time for me to wrap up. That's all we have for today's episode. We'll be back for another episode, but till then, thank you and goodbye.
Quality Management and Benchmarking presents Samvaad QMB. Thank you for your time and see you in the next episode.